Welcome to the CLA Builders Podcast.
Thanks for having me on.
Of course. So, I want you to imagine discovering a buried asset in your backyard worth up to, well, maybe $300,000.
Just sitting there in the dirt.
Exactly. And the only thing keeping you from unlocking it was just a simple City Hall stamp, a stamp that you actually now have the absolute legal right to demand.
Yeah, which is insane to think about.
It really is. But that is the reality for homeowners looking at their property in 2026.
Welcome to today's deep dive, everyone.
I'm excited to get into it.
Today we are analyzing a really comprehensive guide to building accessory dwelling units, or ADUs, in Los Angeles.
Right, the whole backyard boom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this source material comes directly from CLA Builders.
Right.
For those who don't know, they are a luxury design build general contractor. Their license number is 1032013 for those keeping track.
Good to have the official numbers.
Always.
Yeah.
And they service the wider Los Angeles area. So we're talking Pasadena, the San Fernando Valley, Santa Monica.
Huge footprint. Yeah. And the mission of this deep dive today is to basically cut through the noise. We want to unpack the financial, the legal, and really the practical realities of transforming a patch of grass into a serious income-generating asset.
Because the landscape of residential real estate out here in California has, fundamentally fractured from what it was a decade ago.
Totally.
The regulatory hurdles that used to just paralyze homeowners have been systematically dismantled. We're looking at an environment that is engineered to accelerate construction.
Like forced acceleration.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But before we get into the weeds of laying a foundation or, navigating city permits, we need to define the physical structures themselves, because the sheer scale of the financial incentives driving this boom dictates literally everything else.
Okay, let's unpack this. Building an ADU right now is like realizing you've been sitting on a hidden, buried real estate asset in your own backyard. You just have to unlock it.
That's a great way to look at it.
Right. But you have to know what the key looks like. The guide establishes two distinct categories here. First, there's the standard ADU,
which is pretty robust.
Yeah, defined as a fully self-contained living space sitting on the exact same lot as your primary residence.
And self-contained is the operative mechanism there. Like, it does not mean a bedroom with a hot plate.
Right, no cutting corners.
Legally, a standard ADU must function as a completely independent ecosystem. It requires its own fully operational kitchen, a dedicated bathroom, a specific sleeping area, and a private external entrance.
People usually just call them granny flats or in-law suites, right?
Yeah, colloquial terms.
Mm-hmm.
But in the eyes of the city, it operates as an entirely separate residential dwelling.
Which brings us to the second category, the junior ADU, or JADU. And the parameters for a JADU are, well, much more constrained.
Very tight restriction.
Right. It's mathematically capped at a maximum of 500 square feet.
Yep.
And it also has to be built entirely within the existing footprint of the primary home. Like, you can't just expand your external walls into the yard to make one.
You're stuck with the shell you have.
Exactly. It also only requires what the city calls an efficiency kitchen. And surprisingly, the guide says it's legally permitted to share a bathroom with the main house.
Which introduces a distinct functional variance, right? The standard ADU is physically and operationally isolated.
A completely separate box.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the JADU, by design, remains integrated into the shell of the primary residence, even though it possesses that mandatory separate entrance.
Okay, let me stop you there and push back on that definition a little bit. Is a JADU essentially just a glorified guest room, or does it legally function as an independent apartment? I mean, if it shares a bathroom and sits inside the existing walls, how does the city justify calling that a separate unit?
It's a great question. It really comes down to the legal classification of tenancy. That's the direct mechanism that triggers your property value increase.
Okay.
Even with a shared bathroom, the presence of that dedicated exterior entrance and the permitted efficiency kitchen transitions that space. It goes from being just a bedroom to an independent dwelling unit on city records.
Oh, wow. So it's all about the paperwork.
100%. That classification gives you the legal authority to sign a lease with a completely separate tenant. You are monetizing existing square footage. And that legal status is the entire engine behind the financial upside.
And speaking of upside, the numbers outlined in this 2026 guide are massive.
Wow.
We are looking at pure rental income generation ranging from $2,000 to $4,200 per month.
Which is incredible cash flow.
Yeah, obviously heavily dependent on the specific neighborhood and the square footage of the unit.
But just consider the mathematical impact on a homeowner's monthly budget. You are generating a revenue stream that can offset a substantial percentage of a primary mortgage. or
Yeah.
effectively subsidizing the cost of living in one of the most expensive housing markets in the country.
And the monthly cash flow is only half the equation, right? The guide details that a completed, fully permitted ADU can inject between $150,000 to $300,000 into a property's appraised value.
It's basically instant equity.
You are essentially manufacturing 6 figures of equity out of dirt you already paid for.
Yeah, and beyond the sheer capitalization, the personal utility is driving a massive segment of this market too.
Oh, totally. Multi-generational living.
Exactly. It is no longer just a cultural preference. It is an economic necessity in Los Angeles right now.
Yeah, housing is just too expensive.
An ADU provides an architectural solution for aging parents who require proximity but, still desire autonomy.
Right.
Or alternatively, it offers a landing pad for adult children who are just completely priced out of the LA housing market. It keeps the family consolidated on a single appreciating asset.
The ROI is undeniable. I mean, it really is. But if creating this asset is so lucrative, the obvious question you have to ask is why every single homeowner wasn't doing this 10 years ago.
Oh, well, the red tape.
Right, the bottleneck had to be the city. How is it suddenly legally possible to execute these projects without spending like 5 years in zoning court?
The mechanism of change was direct state intervention. The state of California recognized a severe systemic housing shortage.
A crisis, really?
A crisis. And they identified the millions of single-family lots as the most viable, untapped resource to fix it. But to activate that resource, the state had to literally bulldoze the local regulatory barricades.
And the turning point highlighted in the guide is the 2020 legislation regarding owner-occupancy.
That was a big domino to fall.
Yeah, because before that shift, if you built an ADU, the law mandated that you, the property owner, had to physically live on the parcel. Like, you could live in the main house and rent out the back, but you couldn't just treat the entire parcel as a pure investment property.
Exactly. And state law eradicated that owner-occupancy mandate for standard ADUs. The implications of that are profound.
You don't have to live there anymore.
You do not need to reside on the property to construct or rent the unit. An investor can acquire a single-family home, live in a completely different state, and execute 2 separate leases. One for the primary house and one for the newly built ADU.
So the law effectively provides the mechanism to convert any single-family lot into a duplex.
Precisely. It changed the whole game.
That fundamentally alters the calculus for real estate investors. But the most aggressive legal tool handed to the homeowner is undoubtedly ministerial approval.
Oh, absolutely. What's fascinating here is that ministerial approval intentionally strips discretionary power away from local city councils and neighborhood planning boards.
Which used to be a nightmare.
A total nightmare. Historically, discretionary review was the death knell for backyard construction. A planning board could review your blueprints, decide the roof line didn't match the neighborhood aesthetic, or, field a complaint from a neighbor about a disrupted view.
And then what?
They'd simply deny the permit, just like that. But ministerial approval legally mandates that the city of Los Angeles must approve your project within 60 days.
Wow, 60 days.
As long as it meets objective written standards, yes.
I want to make sure the mechanics of that are totally clear for the listener. Ministerial approval basically operates like a math equation. There are no neighborhood hearings. There are no subjective aesthetic rejections.
None.
If your blueprints mathematically align with the required setbacks and the height limits, the city clerk has to stamp the permit.
They have no choice.
The math dictates the outcome, not the mood of the planning committee.
And furthermore, the state obliterated minimum lot size restrictions.
Really? Any size?
Yeah, even if a property sits on a highly constrained, undersized lot in Los Angeles, the homeowner retains the absolute legal right to build, so long as the physical structure fits within the required boundary setbacks.
And that brings us to the parking requirements, which the guide notes are completely waived if the property is located within half a mile of public transit.
And given the density of bus routes and transit lines in Los Angeles, that half-mile radius encompasses a staggering percentage of all residential properties in the city.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Legally, the state says you don't need to add a new parking pad if there's a bus stop nearby. But realistically, doesn't cramming more renters into a neighborhood without adding parking cause massive friction with the neighbors? I mean, street parking in LA is fiercely territorial.
Oh, it absolutely generates neighborhood friction.
Yeah.
It remains one of those highly contested aspects of the legislation.
Right.
However, looking at the systemic mechanism, the state legislature made a calculated policy decision. The crisis of housing scarcity supersedes the inconvenience of parking scarcity.
That makes sense from a macro level.
By removing the parking mandate, the law reduces the construction cost and the physical footprint of the ADU. Right. It prioritizes the creation of the living space.
So the legislation is entirely on the side of the homeowner looking to build, regardless of the localized parking strain it creates.
Exactly. We are just looking at how the rules are written. It is a ruthless prioritization of housing over vehicles.
So, with all those legal barriers dismantled and the city effectively forced to approve valid plans, the homeowner basically faces a massive physical puzzle.
Yeah.
What do you actually fit this lucrative asset onto your specific lot?
Right, because every lot is different.
The guide outlines 3 primary architectural structures allowed in LA.
Yeah. So the first structure is the detached ADU. This is a ground-up, independent building constructed out in the backyard.
These units maximize privacy, obviously, and the size allowances are pretty significant. A detached unit can be built up to 1,200 square feet.
Which is huge.
Yeah, I mean, mechanically, 1,200 square feet isn't a cottage. That is a full-scale 3-bedroom home.
Completely.
And the standard height limit is 16 feet for a single-story structure, pushing up to 18 feet if the design incorporates a second story.
Now, the second option is the attached ADU. This structure shares a physical, load-bearing wall with the primary residence.
But it still has that legally required separate entrance.
Exactly. And the sizing mechanism here is proportional. An attached unit can be up to 50% of the primary residence's total floor area.
But wait, doesn't the state guarantee a minimum size, even if your main house is tiny?
Yes, state law installs a floor. No matter how small the primary house is, the state guarantees the homeowner the right to build at least an 800-square-foot attached unit.
That's a great safety net. Then we have the third option, which the CALA guide highlights as consistently being the fastest and most cost-effective route, the garage conversion.
Oh, garage conversions are everywhere right now.
I view a garage conversion as essentially upcycling a house. You're leveraging existing bones. The concrete slab foundation is already cured and settled.
The structural framing is already erected.
Right. The roof is already shedding water. By upcycling that existing shell, you entirely bypass the heavy machinery and the massive capital required for those early phases of ground-up construction.
And beyond the material savings, there's a profound spatial advantage built into the zoning laws for garage conversion.
Oh, the setbacks, right.
Exactly. When you pour a foundation for a brand new detached ADU, current zoning requires a 4-foot setback from your side and rear property lines. You cannot build right up to the fence.
Which eats up a lot of yard space.
What a massive number of older detached garages in Los Angeles were constructed decades ago directly on the property line.
Because they were built before the modern setback rules even existed, so they're legally grandfathered in.
Yep. If we connect this to the bigger picture, matching the specific ADU type to the lot's unique constraints is the single most critical phase of the design process.
Okay, give me an example.
Imagine a really narrow Los Angeles lot. If you lose 4 feet on the left and 4 feet on the right for new setbacks, your buildable width might become totally unlivable.
Oh, you'd basically be building a hallway.
Exactly. So by upcycling a zero-lot line garage, you reclaim that critical square footage. It is a strategic mechanism to maximize your footprint.
That mechanism completely changes the design approach. But, having a brilliant layout on a 3D rendering is pretty meaningless if you hit a wall in the execution phase.
And people do, constantly.
The guide makes it very clear that the Los Angeles Department of Building and Safety, LADBS, will aggressively scrutinize the engineering, even if the general permit is ministerially approved.
Yeah, a streamlined approval process does not equal a relaxed safety code. LADBS operates strictly by the book, and this is exactly where unformed homeowners walk blindly into massive project-killing expenses.
So let's treat the LADBS permitting process like a strict coding algorithm. If one input is wrong, the entire system rejects the code, and you are sent back to the starting line.
Right.
The first major variable to input is utility infrastructure. If you build a new detached ADU in the backyard, you cannot just tap into the garden hose and run an extension cord from the kitchen.
Not even close. The infrastructure must be completely independent and up to modern municipal code.
So what does that entail?
You are required to install separate electrical subpanels, run dedicated water supply lines, and critically install an independent sewer line that properly ties into the main municipal system.
That sewer line is the hidden trap.
Oh, it's brutal.
Mechanically, trenching a sewer line means digging a deep channel through potentially 50 feet of backyard. It means breaking through existing concrete driveways, navigating around old tree roots, and laying new pipe at the precise mathematical slope required by the city inspector before you even tie into the street main.
It's highly technical work.
And the guide notes this single process can add an unexpected $15,000 to $30,000 to a budget. I mean, finding out you are 30 grand short halfway through excavation is catastrophic.
It really is. And another non-negotiable capital expense for new detached ADUs is the state solar mandate.
Oh, right, the solar panels.
California law dictates that every newly constructed detached ADU must generate its own solar power. This is not an eco-friendly suggestion. It is a rigid legal requirement.
And what does that run?
It immediately adds another $8,000 to $15,000 to the upfront construction budget from day one.
Day one. Wow. The guide also emphasizes the critical importance of running a ZIMAS check immediately. That's the city's zoning information system, right?
Yes. ZIMAS acts as an overlay mechanism. If your lot sits in a designated hillside area, a coastal zone, or a historic preservation overlay, all the streamlined math we just discussed gets overwritten.
Overwritten by what?
Highly complex localized rules. Hillside overlays are notoriously difficult. Building on a slip triggers advanced soil engineering requirements, massive concrete retaining walls, and specialized drainage systems to prevent mudslides.
That sounds incredibly expensive.
It is. Homeowners who skip the ZIMAS check submit standard plans only to have LADBS reject them and demand, like, a $10,000 geological survey.
Which naturally leads to the most important decision a homeowner makes, who actually swings the hammers. If you are sitting on this massive potential asset, and let's say a listener hires a cheaper, inexperienced contractor who doesn't understand the LADBS plan check, won't they just end up paying double what they saved through endless correction rounds and permit delays?
It is the most common failure state in residential construction. The fundamental truth about these so-called hidden costs, utility trenching, solar mandates, soil engineering, is that they aren't actually hidden at all.
Right. They're literally in the code.
The LADBS code is publicly available. These costs are just ignored or misunderstood by inexperienced builders who are trying to artificially deflate their initial bid to win the contract.
Ah, so they bid low just to get the job.
Exactly. But every time LADBS kicks a plan back for an engineering correction, the homeowner bleeds time and money. Rigorous preparation and knowledge of the municipal mechanism is the ultimate budget protector.
So how does a homeowner insulate themselves from that cascade of failure? The guide points to the operational philosophy of its authors, Cala builders. They utilize a design-build model, which is structurally very different from the traditional method, right?
Very different. The traditional method is fragmented. You hire an architect, you finalize blueprints, and then you shop those blueprints around to various random general contractors to see who bids the lowest.
Which sounds like a recipe for finger-pointing.
It inherently creates a combative environment. If an engineering flaw is discovered during framing, the contractor blames the architect's design, the architect blames the contractor's execution.
And the homeowner is trapped in the middle, paying for the delay.
Always. But the design-build mechanism brings the architectural planning, the 3D design, the intricate LADBS permitting process, and the high-end physical construction all under a single corporate roof.
Which is huge for streamlined communication. And the guide specifically notes how Cala structures their internal quality control. We're talking about dedicated specialists operating cohesively.
Right.
You have John Smith analyzing the roofing geometry before plans are finalized, Mark Davis supervising the physical installation, Alex Brown acting as the internal safety inspector to preempt those LADBS code violations, and Michael Taylor running quality control.
And they bring broad expertise. They aren't just building backyard boxes. They are applying the precision required for complex hillside luxury construction and commercial tenant improvements directly to your ADU.
So, what does this all mean? Mechanically, it means accountability is consolidated. When you are injecting hundreds of thousands of dollars into a property, navigating a strict municipal algorithm, and altering the structural integrity of your home, having a single point of accountability just fundamentally takes the chaos out of construction.
It really does.
When quality matters, having a cohesive team is far better than juggling 5 disparate subcontractors who have no vested interest in each other's success.
This raises an important question for you, the listener. If you are evaluating the footprint of your backyard right now, the primary question is no longer, can I build an ADU?
Right, because the legislative shifts have almost certainly guaranteed that you legally can.
Exactly. The critical question is, who do I trust to build it right? Who actually possesses the systemic expertise to anticipate the utility trenching, navigate the soil engineering, and execute a luxury finish that actually maximizes that final appraisal value?
That is the pivotal question. Let's recap the mechanics of what we've covered today. Building an ADU in Los Angeles in 2026 is an aggressively lucrative maneuver. We were talking about establishing a real monthly rental revenue stream and forcefully injecting massive equity into your property's value.
The state has literally rewritten the legal code to prioritize your right to build.
But extracting that value requires operational precision. You have to understand how to leverage the specific architectural mechanisms, like knowing when an upcycled garage conversion legally circumvents the setback rules that would otherwise kill a detached unit.
And it requires partnering with a trusted integrated design-build entity like Cala builders to execute flawlessly and preemptively solve those infrastructure traps.
I highly encourage you, the listener, to walk out your back door this afternoon, look at that unused space, and run the math on its potential. But before we wrap this up, I want to leave you with one final, broader concept to mull over.
Let's hear it.
We have spent this entire session focused on the microeconomics, what this means for your individual property value and your personal wealth. But I want you to zoom out. If every single-family homeowner in Los Angeles suddenly engaged this mechanism and unlocked the dormant real estate asset buried in their backyard, how would that totally reshape the fabric, the community, and the economy of the entire city?
The macro implications of that level of decentralized housing creation are just staggering to consider.
It takes a simple backyard construction project and scales it into a total urban transformation. Keep digging into the details, analyze the mechanisms, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.